Yes, I'd like to call Ryan Brisson back up again. So this time, Ryan's going to be talking about exploring the feasibility and utility of entrustable professional activities in resident assessment and feedback, a pilot survey study. Ryan.
Thank you again for the introduction. I'm excited to bring this to this group at this conference. I'm hoping, similar to our first presentation, that through participation of people in this group and otherwise, we can turn a work in progress abstract into a completed abstract. So this is a pilot study that's currently accruing. It's going to have some similarities to my last presentation focused on EPAs. So we can go through the background briefly. Again, no formalized national curriculum that exists in radiation oncology. There's a focus in medical education to transition from a model focused on time spent in training to more of a competency-based curriculum. And this has been shown to be successful in other countries who have utilized this approach. Like I talked about earlier, the Canadian, the Royal College using a competency by design approach. And just to briefly review that again, each specialty is broken down into 4 distinct stages of training. Each stage has a list of entrustable professional activities. Again, these things are actionable, observable, measurable in the process of clinical care. The resident gets observed completing those EPAs, allowing for coaching and feedback in real time. The observers record the EPAs and can provide feedback, ideally, again, in some sort of easily disseminated manner such that the resident or learner is getting the feedback in real time. And at regular intervals, a competency committee reviews the documented observations, provides recommendations of the individual learner's progress in training. And then once they've accomplished all of the EPAs at a given stage, they've completed that stage and they move to the next stage and a new set of competencies. And as we discussed earlier, the benefits of this approach: clear expectations for the trainee, opportunities for feedback and coaching longitudinally throughout clinical experiences, rapid remediation of gaps in knowledge, and ultimately increased confidence of the educators and learners, but most importantly, better care overall. Like I talked about earlier, in 2020, ROECSG recruited representatives from key radiation oncology stakeholders in the US with a goal of developing a competency-based curriculum for radiation oncology in the United States. These results were published in the Red Journal and produced this list of 52 EPAs that met consensus for inclusion and were subsequently assigned a phase in the competency by design curriculum. They're not necessarily meant to be read here. I have a version that I'm happy to disseminate to anyone who's interested. The entrustability scale in the middle associated with each of the EPAs allows for an objective measure of performance. So as you can see, there's observe, and that ranges to performing a task with varying levels of supervision, to independent performance of a task, and ultimately overseeing others performing that task. This allows the trainee to self-assess their progress in a tangible and actionable way. It provides educators and program directors the ability to provide meaningful feedback to trainees and identify gaps in a resident's training and opportunities for growth. Importantly, the EPAs are agnostic to things like case numbers or time spent training. And so it's flexible to individual learners that might progress through these competencies at different paces. But to date, no evaluation of the feasibility and utility of these proposed EPAs has been completed. And so we hypothesized that EPAs will be practical and provide actionable feedback on a resident's performance. And in order to kind of address that need of evaluating the EPAs in clinical practice, we pursued an IRB-approved multi-institutional pilot study, which was initiated in October of 2023. To go through the key inclusion criteria, they're fairly straightforward. It's an attending in a resident pair at any academic training program in the United States. Again, these are EPAs specific to the United States, so it is limited to that. Working together on a clinical rotation. It's agnostic to things like rotation length, frequency of assessment, disease subsite. And really the main requirement is that the EPAs are the primary tool utilized for assessment of resident performance on that clinical rotation. Importantly, there's no information that's collected regarding the actual performance of the resident. And so the EPAs themselves can be stored locally or printed or whatever. We're not going to collect any of that data. We're just assessing how people respond to using the EPAs. So to walk through the methods, so an attending and a resident agree to participate in the study. They're going to go on a clinical rotation together. And basically, prior to utilizing the EPAs, the attending and resident are both sent a Qualtrics survey. The surveys themselves are pretty short, that they complete independently prior to utilizing the EPAs. The baseline questions are really used to assess their current evaluation practices and how the users feel about the current methods that they're utilizing. Then during the rotation, the EPAs are the primary tool utilized in feedback. Again, the protocol doesn't specify how frequently the EPAs are utilized, and thus whatever the current practice is what can be utilized. So if people do self-assessment mid-rotation, end of rotation, or any combination thereof, that's lends itself to being still included in the protocol as long as the EPAs are utilized as the primary method. Another issue that came up was institutions requiring some formal thing within the department, and you can do more than so if there's a department specific survey that needs to be filled out, you can do that as well. It's just the EPAs also have to be the primary source of feedback given on that rotation. And again, none of these feedback results are stored locally, so or are disseminated. They can be stored locally, and we're not going to collect any of that information. And then so after the rotation, there's a follow-up survey that's sent, again, a short Qualtrics survey to the attending and resident independently, must be done after the EPAs during and completion of the rotation. And the focus of this survey is questions about the perception of using the EPAs, collects information on potential improvements to maximize the utility of them while minimizing burden. And that's it. That's the end of the study. And so for a project status update, to date, we've had 6 attending and resident pairs from 5 different institutions enrolled. So 12 participants in total, 6 dyads. Resident accrual has included residents in all various years of training. All of the participating attending physicians have had extensive experience in resident training and education. Importantly, the pilot study is continuing to actively accrue. And so if anybody here or online is interested or know people that might be interested and fit the fairly broad inclusion criteria, let me know. And I'm happy to get people enrolled so that we can get as robust of an assessment of these EPAs as possible. And so for discussion, this is currently a currently accruing pilot study representing the first analysis of the ROECSG EPAs as a method of resident performance assessment on clinical rotations. I believe this data will be really important in providing baseline understanding of the feasibility, utility, and the potential benefit of implementation of a competency-based curriculum in radiation oncology. And again, if you or anyone at your institution are interested in participating, my contact information is there, and I'll be here all day. Thanks.